Hey everyone, Taz from Critical Thinking Anarchist here. As we delve through my list of movies that desperately need to be fixed, we're going back to 1998 to fix the abomination that is Godzilla. Why do I keep doing this to myself? And why are there so many terrible movies on Netflix? Oh well, at least this one isn't a Netflix original. Oh wait, they have Netflix original anime versions. I'm not going to get into those. Alright, the idea behind Godzilla in New York City has been around since Godzilla was first seen in the United States by Americans. Much like everything, the idea of having Godzilla in New York is perfectly well and good. However, it's the execution that matters, and that was what was totally screwed up here. People often say they want their fantasies made real. The original Godzilla was some sort of amphibious lizard, kind of like a dinosaur, but not really, and that it had been transformed by nuclear testing and that it had gone wrong. In all actuality, I guess Godzilla could be considered the first mutant if this were a Marvel property. As a real monster, it makes sense that Godzilla would be a transformed monitor lizard or Komodo dragon. And CGI in 1998 was finally able to start making this possible. But it just doesn't fit the classic mold of what Godzilla had looked like for almost 45 years at that point. It's possible that if Godzilla had been animated in the classic monster style, the movie might have been received better. But also, the story wasn't very good, and it focused too much on the people and a very contrived love story instead of the monster. A little background here. Pretty much since Godzilla was brought over to the States, subbed and dubbed from the Japanese, people wanted to see an American version. The idea was that with Hollywood backing the movie, with a big budget and professionals creating the sets and the tones for the movie, you wouldn't have the guy in the rubber suit destroying Lego Tokyo that you often got with the original versions. Finally, in 1998, we got that movie, and my God, did we all just go, we want the guy in the rubber suit back! The funny thing was, they spent a lot of money on this movie. Between the actors, the writers, the director, and the CGI, they spent so much money on this. It was partially written and directed by Roland Emmerich. At the time, Emmerich had directed several blockbuster movies, including Universal Soldier with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren, which was decent. He went from there to Stargate with James Spader and Kurt Russell, which is still one of the best sci-fi movies around and had several TV shows based on it. Then he went on to ID4, Independence Day, which was a huge financial success, despite not being that great of a movie, but overall, it's mostly good. Then on to this. So, let's get right into it. He starts off by paying homage to the original movies, and I will admit that he does this quite a bit throughout the movie, which is one of those things that's nice, but also reminds you how much this movie is not related to the Japanese versions. So we get the intro of the atomic age and iguanas and eggs, which is a lot of foreshadowing. Now we get the first current day establishing shot. For some reason, Roland Emmerich wanted a lot of establishing shots. He established the hell out of this movie. If you ever think for a second, hey, where in the world are we right now? Either go back 10 seconds or wait 10 seconds because you'll probably be in a different location pretty quickly. Anyway, we're in the South Pacific during rain. The movie starts out a bit confusingly as the boat rocks quite a bit, but not to the storm. The crew is thrown about and we get this shot of a guy having knives fall and just missing him. At this point, the audience could go either way on whether this is supposed to be funny or scary. Very quickly, we get our first glimpse of the monster with his tail whipping the boat for some reason and likely killing most of the crew. Next, we get our co-star of the movie, Matthew Broderick. I have nothing against Matthew Broderick. He's a decent actor and has some range. He's mostly comedic, but could be stretching himself for a sci-fi horror thriller here. Still, it's a bit ominous that he's the main human character. Second establishing shot, Chernobyl, Ukraine. At this time, I don't think people were allowed in this area of the zone without lead-lined hazmat suits. I could be wrong, though. Broderick is, quote, the worm guy, end quote. He's a scientist studying the effects of nuclear radiation on worms. Again, it's hard to know if this is supposed to be serious or funny. Also, it's raining. A big helicopter touches down with American government agents, as often happens in the middle of a nuclear disaster area. They start the running joke of getting Broderick's character's last name wrong. It's Tatopoulos, but everyone seems to call him Papadopoulos or something. This gag goes on the entire movie with multiple characters and is the first real oh crap moment of the movie as you start to realize this is all about cheese. Third establishing shot, Tahiti. It's a magical place according to S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Phil Coulson. Jean Reno's character is introduced. Again, Jean Reno is a fine actor, known mostly for his action films at this time in America, so you still have hope for this movie. He does the famous trailer scene of getting the Japanese man's attention by lighting his lighter, and the man says Gojira, which is another homage to the original movies, as in Japan they were known as Gojira. Fourth establishing shot. Establishing shots are to Roland Emmerich what montages are to most directors. All right, we're in Panama now. The Army official leads Matthew Broderick to his assignment of finding out how nuclear radiation affects something other than worms. He leads them into the giant footprint of Godzilla, but Matthew can't see it because he's standing in it and doesn't realize it. And we see two guys measuring the size of the footprint, half diagonally for some reason. I'm no podiatrist, and I don't play one on TV, but I'm pretty sure there's no official measurement that goes like this. Anyway, we get more comedic elements. Matthew Broderick meets another doctor played by Vicki Lewis, who was great on news radio, but is another comedic actor. Of course, she checks out Broderick because that has to be in the story despite going absolutely nowhere later in the movie. Then we get the nerd with allergies because of course we do. It's 1998 and goddammit, there's 4 comedic actors on screen at the same time, and the facial expressions in this exact shot pretty much sums up the movie. Despite being an establishing shot, this is not an official establishing shot. And in case you still weren't sure if this movie was going to be serious or not, we have Harry Shearer in this movie, and he's all embarrassed about being short, so he props himself up. Damn, Harry Shearer plays comedy so straight, though. You actually believe his arrogance, and that voice almost makes up for the comedy. Vicky thinks Matthew is cute. And we needed an entire scene for this because reasons. We get to the first ship, which is beached now, and see the claw marks from Godzilla. This is supposed to give us a sense of size and dread of the beast. There's another contrived scene with Jean Reno and the people of Panama, but we're jumping over that because it's irrelevant. Fifth official establishing shot. The Eastern Seaboard. As if that's not vague. For some reason, Roland wanted to throw Jaws into this movie, as if to say, you thought Jaws was a big bad? Check out my guy who can pull down 3 fishing trawlers at the same time. It really doesn't make any sense and seems really out of place. Now we're on a plane with these guys, and Matthew Broderick suddenly realizes part of what's going on with Godzilla and that he's going to New York. So now we get our 6th official establishing shot, but can't call it New York. No, they probably have it trademarked. So they call it the city that never sleeps. Oh, shut up, you arrogant bastards. By the way, still raining. And what is this path this thing has been taking? Look at this map! Why would it take this convoluted route? California is so much closer. None of this makes sense. It goes from the Polynesian area to Panama to New York. I just don't get it. Apparently, a 1990s New York taxi driver suggested this was the fastest way to LaGuardia one time, and Roland Emmerich put it in the movie. Oh, good. We were slightly introduced to this lady before, but now we know why she exists. She was Matthew Broderick's college girlfriend 8 years ago, and they haven't spoken since, which means they have every reason to continue to think of each other today because people just never move on in their lives. She freaks out after seeing him on TV, and we have 3 more comedic actors on screen at the same time, even if Hank Azaria is a national treasure. And now we have fake Ebert and Siskel, the movie critics, as Mayor and Mayor's assistant. Well, that just shot this movie straight in the ass from having any hope of being decent to being completely full of crap comedy. Just in case you thought maybe they just wanted to pander and it would still be okay. They have this tiny old guy in a backwards cap go out on this pier, go fishing, catch Godzilla, and somehow shuffle run his ass back off of it before Godzilla kills him, because apparently Godzilla is the slowest monster on the planet in the water unless he's being attacked by submarines, and whoops, that's later. Yes, you're seeing this correctly. They actually showed Godzilla next to Barney just in case you were drunk and high and not paying attention to the stupidity that came before this. Harry Shearer misses the biggest story of the century because he's too busy trying to find the biggest story of the century. Poor guy. Meanwhile, his Simpsons buddy, Hank Azaria, decides to film the monster and almost get steps on, but the toe spread just perfectly to miss him. Hold on, this is not that scene. This was a candid shot of Hank realizing he signed an ironclad deal to be in this movie or be fined his entire life savings. Siskel and Ebert's product placement. There's a lot of product placement in this movie. See? After another contrived comedy scene, they go into the sewers because they realize that Godzilla has been avoiding detection by moving underground through the sewers and subway systems. To be fair, New York has a massive underground system that likely would be exploited like this by pretty much anything smart enough to do so. However, we get more foreshadowing with fish. Helicopters! The sky is filled with helicopters because we needed something to do for 15 seconds to pad the runtime of the movie. French roast! Get it? John Reno is French. He hates American coffee, so they got him American French roast coffee because he's French. Oh, God. Okay, back to the monster. The foreshadowing of the previous couple of scenes realize that Godzilla is hungry, so give him fish. They dump several large trucks worth into a pile. Makes as much sense as anything. Animals are susceptible to being baited. And then they pop open all the manhole covers to send the smell down, which isn't how smell works, but it would make this persistent rain that seems to cover the globe, except sunny Panama, go down into the sewers, and that water would be carrying fish oil as it passed over the fish and drained into the sewers, which would give off the odor as it did so. All right, we finally get to see a full close-up shot of the monster, and it looks nothing like the Japanese version. This is the problem when people say they want a realistic version of something. They try to base it in reality. In real life, there's nothing that looks like Godzilla. There's no lizard or creature that would be scaled up to look like the original version of the monster. So the creator said, we'll take this one part seriously and scale up an iguana, but modify it slightly so it looks kind of like the original. It didn't work. The hybrid creature on The Flash looked better than this thing. Oh, for crying out loud, this thing has been all wanton destruction, not caring about anything, but suddenly it just stops and looks at Matthew Broderick. Then it screams at him, and the military starts shooting, and I swear these military guys were stormtroopers before this because they can't hit the broadside of the Empire State Building. But apparently they can hit the Chrysler Building. Alright, I didn't take that screenshot because nobody cares. In the middle of all this, Matthew Broderick and this woman decide to reconcile and talk about their feelings because we need a contrived love story in the middle of our comedy monster movie. Well, why not? We have already 4 other movies going on in this thing. Why not this too? And now the movie shows its version of the map, which includes Jamaica on there. We never saw a Jamaica scene. I'm guessing they cut it for runtime, or too many establishing shots, or maybe it wasn't raining enough. The submarines chase and shoot Godzilla, who constantly outsmarts them until it doesn't and gets knocked by the concussion blast of 2 torpedoes. In the meantime, Matthew Broderick and his friends all discover eggs at Madison Square Garden because of course they do. Some more product placement for Crystal Farm eggs. Oh, never mind. Just TNT, and now they're in a combination Jurassic Park and Aliens. Many chase scenes, escaping the Velociraptors or baby Godzillas. 2 missiles from strike fighters blow up Madison Square Garden, and New Yorkers rejoice as they never have to watch the Knicks lose another championship there again. Back to Jurassic Park, and the T-Rex is chasing the taxicab, which contains our 4 main characters who are not the same 4 main characters from before. By the way, it's never explained how the monster comes back. He eats them, but ends up spitting them out because New York taxis are dirty as hell. Oh, hallelujah! 6 missiles from the strike fighters hit Godzilla and finally put us all out of our misery. Oh, look. Now we're in the King Kong phase of the movie. Matthew Broderick walks up, tells us how the monster was more human than the rest of us and just wanted a place in the world. The monster looks at him and then closes her eyes and dies. Matthew Broderick looks at her longingly, kisses her, and says, Good night, sweet prince. Of course, that isn't what happens, but it's close enough. Oh, and Baby Godzilla sets up for a sequel. Well, at least this movie planned ahead. And then credits featuring a cover by the Wallflowers of David Bowie's Heroes, which is pretty decent. Then Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, whatever his name he was going by, doing a crap version of a crap Led Zeppelin song. And let's move on to the fix, shall we? How to fix it. So, the glaring problems have been fixed in the more recent American versions of the films. They corrected the look and sound of Godzilla and put in place a much more believable storyline. However, let's pretend those movies don't exist and fix this one. As I stated in my opening, Roland Emmerich puts a lot of homages to the source material, and the fact that you have a director who knows the source material is great. However, as we found out from this movie and several other reboots and remakes that reference the source material in homage form while simultaneously straying away from it, just reminds the audience that there are things they'll like better than what you're watching. So get rid of those. Once again, as seems to have been a theme in the late 90s until about 2015, Hollywood didn't understand how to pick a direction with a movie. This movie tries to be a sci-fi thriller, a horror movie, and a comedy. Pick one! The original Godzilla movies weren't funny on purpose, at least not for the most part. They were funny because they were a guy in a rubber suit destroying cardboard cities. They were funny because they had no budget. Personally, I'd get rid of the horror and comedy elements and make it a sci-fi thriller. Take the movie seriously. Present it seriously. There can be comic moments in it, but those should be used for breaking tension, not for common scenes. So, we're going to take it seriously, which means get rid of all the stupid scripted jokes. The genre no coffee scenes, the Barney scene, Hank Azaria not getting killed, the nerd with allergies, all of it. Especially the Siskel and Ebert as mayor of New York thing. Keep Matthew Broderick. I think he's pretty much the only straight man in the movie anyway. Just have him be a bit more serious and earnest in kind of a nerdy version of Ferris Bueller. Also, give him something a bit more hardcore than nuclear worms in his background. How does that qualify him for any of the way he's supposed to be a lead scientist on this project? The next thing is throw out everything that has to do with the love story. Get rid of the ex-girlfriend. Get rid of Hank Azaria and his girlfriend. I have zero clue what they add to the story. Get rid of Vicki Lewis, despite the fact that I think she's great. Panama really added nothing to the storyline anyway. Right now we're at about a 1 hour movie by getting rid of just the comedy and romance. Also, get rid of the Jaws scene. Again, it adds nothing and it's just Roland Emmerich in a non-existent pissing match. Spielberg didn't even know he was in the contest and still won. Finally, change the look of a Godzilla to the classic look, but update it and keep the original sounds. Again, they essentially did this in the new movies, but this is 1998, not current day. Start the same way. I have no problems with the beginning and the Japanese boat. Probably get rid of the knives, just missing thing, or make it scarier somehow. Give some menace to the beast. Give that quick sense of everything is calm and we're fine, and then, oh my god, we're gonna die! The Tahiti scene is okay as long as Jean Reno is more of a point. Otherwise, cast a nobody and never show the face of the scientist questioning the fisherman. The Chernobyl scene should, again, be more serious. Have a U.S. science base where Matthew Broderick is the project leader. Have other scientists in hazmat suits if you don't want to put him in one. But show he's the one in charge and the one who knows what's going on. Add other life, like plants, to the worms and show the nuclear effects on those as well. It gives depth and meaning to the character. So now we have a reason for the U.S. government agents to show up and pick Broderick for their Godzilla assignment instead of just a random scientist in the field by himself. With that, they head to Washington, D.C. first to debrief. There's no point dragging them around the world from field to field just to guess at what's happening. Show a map of the Polynesian Islands and other areas Godzilla has been spotted afterward. Show a spot on Tahiti, then Hawaii, then perhaps down to Panama, and give a good reason like an algae bloom or El Nino. Then, after Godzilla passes Panama, it starts heading north past the Florida Keys, but they lose sight and contact. I really can't think of a good reason for Godzilla to hit New York City, but maybe a hurricane has just come through and the remnants hit New York, which means the waters heading north are abnormally warm and a certain type of fish has been carried with the current and Godzilla is chasing those fish for nutrients or something. I don't know, just throwing stuff out here. Matthew Broderick figures all this out. They investigate, and sure enough, fishing trawlers have been attacked by this thing but haven't been able to report it yet. This allows the team to keep the news from spreading and panicking the island of Manhattan and the rest of the coast. Submarines are big, bulky, and slow. It makes much more sense to use planes and surface ships. Instead of shooting torpedoes, using mines is a better way to go. Near land, they're easier to control and they can be remotely detonated and don't require heat signatures. Have ships and planes attempt to push Godzilla into the minefield where it both works and doesn't work. And Godzilla ends up on the island in the city, and then the panic and chaos ensue and cause new problems. Right now, I figure about 1 hour and 15 minutes runtime. So we need 20 minutes of stuff to do in the city. The concept of everything else that happened in the city with Godzilla is okay. So I guess have it rampaging the city as it attempts to get away from the military, then end up in the sewers and subway tunnels. They attempt to lure it out with fish that they figured out earlier, and it works. And after more chaos where it destroys some more of the city and military vehicles, they do kill it. Then they find the eggs in Madison Square Garden, blow up that in a smarter way, but don't have the weird Jurassic Park chase scenes. Go ahead and end it with the baby Godzilla coming out of the egg that got missed. But also have that be in a completely separate area and like a year later. We don't want it seeming like Godzilla is able to procreate instantaneously like they pretty much did in the movie. I don't really care for the songs. They sold a lot of records though. Anyway, that's my take on how to fix Godzilla 1998 if we were back in 1998. Many of these things were fixed in the more recent American versions of the films, but they still focus too much on the humans and not enough on the monsters. However, this one is supposed to be an origin story of sorts, so it makes more sense that it focuses on people discovering the creature than it does to focus on the creature's interaction with the world and enemies like newer ones do. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. What would you have done differently? And if I entertained you, throw a like up and subscribe for more content, ring the bell for notifications, and I will talk to you later.